Hey guys, TechGeek here again with another video, and this one's going to be a little bit different. It's not a review or me showing you around a car or something like that. It's actually kind of my tell-all of my experience with Vroom. For those of you who don't know about Vroom, Vroom is an online car sales company, and you can sort of buy used cars from them the way that you would buy something else online. I think that their goal was they wanted to try making used car sales easier online, just because today the dealership experience of having to go to a dealership, especially in the time of COVID, test drive different cars, try things out, touch different surfaces, interact with a whole bunch of different people, was just not necessarily feasible. And sort of the car buying process, at least here in the US, has been kind of bureaucratic the way dealerships operate for a very long time. And so with the exception of places like CarMax that actually do have a really great customer experience, other companies have been popping up online like Vroom and competitors like Carvana and Trek. And I'm sure that there's others. There's a lot of these going about. But in particular, I decided to try Vroom. And so this story starts off towards the start of the month of March. As I'm filming this video, we're coming up on the end of April. And I believe it was in the first week, between the 1st and the 4th, is when I decided to buy a car for my mom. Now, this was a joint purchase between my uncle and I, personal life things aside, but we decided to buy this car for my mom. And we wanted to put some money together and get her a nice, newer car so that she can get places. She's a single mother, she is a teacher, and she's a new immigrant to this country. So having a car to her was very important to give her the freedom and ability to sort of get places and be mobile and live her life, especially in the time of COVID. And this was a really important purchase, not just for her, but also for my uncle and I, because we sort of put this money together, and it was not a small amount of money. It was not an unsubstantial amount of money. Instead of getting into specific details, I'm going to say it's over $25,000. And we decided to just buy the car for cash because neither of us wanted to go do another credit check and think about financing. And, we just wanted to pay for the car in cash and get it over with. And so my mom lives on the East Coast and I live here on the West Coast. And so really the easiest way of being able to buy a car from my mom, who doesn't have a ton of experience going to dealerships and finagling a deal with them, was to pay a little bit of a price premium and find a good car online that came with a warranty, that came with a guarantee from whatever business we were buying it from, and for me to be able to buy it here and just have it shipped out to her. And she's had some experience with different cars before. We settled on a 2019 Hyundai Kona with pretty much every option. And so this car was over 25 grand, basically. And, I got in touch with Vroom. I was on their website and I was looking through cars pretty routinely, and then we ended up on this one car that sort of fit the bill perfectly. It was a white 2019 Hyundai Kona, had everything that we were looking for, very, very low miles, a single owner, no damage of any kind, clean Carfax, and it was perfect. And so I called the dealer, or I basically called Vroom, because really the way that they do it is you can either just do everything online, or you can sort of call someone and they'll walk with you through the process. And me being so far removed from where the car was and sort of what the process was going to look like, I decided that it would be best for me to just call them. I was at work, it was a pretty chill day, so I called them and we identify the car and decide that this is the one that we want to buy. And so I let them know that I'd be happy to make a deposit today and then continue with the purchase of the car and pay for it in cash, because I believe that they take a couple days to finalize the deal. And so they were totally cool with that. They took my $500 deposit on my Amex. Sometimes dealerships don't like Amexes and things very much, but they took my deposit on my Amex, and I was kind of on my way. They said that in a few days I would receive some paperwork in the mail, which of course would go to my mom to sign for the car, and then we could wire the money and make the payment. And so they sent my mom a bunch of paperwork with a contract for purchasing the vehicle, the power of attorney for them to be able to go and title it in her state, and to get her registration and everything mailed to her. We read through the paperwork, everything was in order. It was a very standard vehicle purchase contract. I've purchased and sold 3 vehicles in the last year and a half, so I'm very familiar with the paperwork. I, of course, ran through the contracts with her to make sure everything was in order, and that paperwork reached her in a matter of 2 days. They were very prompt in getting the paperwork delivered to her. It was FedExed with overnight priority delivery, which was great. She gets it, we look through it, she signs the paperwork, they have a return envelope in the, or a return label in the thing, and she sends it back. So a couple days go by, and she sent the paperwork back. I was tracking it with, they use FedEx, and so I was tracking it with FedEx. It was marked as delivered, and I hadn't heard anything. So I gave it a day, because I was like, well, just give it a day and see what happens. We're already about 3 to 4 days into this process now, so definitely longer than purchasing a car just by going to a dealership, but I imagine, the car is on, who knows where the car is in the country. They're located in Texas. I'm on the West Coast, she's on the East Coast, whatever. Give them a day. Give them a day, no email, no call. And so I called them, and I get to speak with like a tier 1 customer service agent who confirmed that they had received the paperwork, and said that I could either, when I let them know that I was paying for the car in cash, they said I could either send a cashier's check or a wire transfer. Now, I personally don't feel very comfortable sending cashier's checks just because I'm sort of, I don't want to send something in the mail after the money's already been taken out of my bank account. But I knew that with a wire, it's relatively safe. There's a history of the transaction of where it went with the bank, or if I ever needed like a lawyer or anything, like I know where it was going, and the information was verifiable. And so they sent me the wire info, and it's a weekday, it's in the middle of the day. I just go online to my bank. My bank allows me to send wires electronically through just their website, so I log in and I wire the money, and I get a confirmation from my bank. I got a call from them later to verify that I did indeed initiate the thing and that they were going to send it out. They had said that they'd heard from other people who had sent to this company before, the company being Vroom. And so they were like, yeah, everything's in order from ours, and if you want to confirm it, we'll send it out. And I was like, perfect, just send it out. I want to get this car as soon as possible. They were like, great. That's kind of the end of it with my bank. We're coming to the end of the week now. This is maybe Thursday or Friday that this happened, so March 6th or 7th. I think. I'm forgetting what the exact dates were, but this happened in the first week of March. I think a prerequisite to mention is that Vroom says that the process should take from buying your car 10 to 14 days tops to get your car from looking at it online to having it in front of you. And they charge a $700 standard delivery fee on all of their vehicles. And, they handle their business transactions as far as their shipping and logistics, whatever way they probably, or they do outsource it to other companies, but that's what they charge. They charge you $700. To contrast, for the same sort of distance traveled, CarMax will charge you $199. And if you end up buying the car from them, they roll that into the price of the car. And that was like to deliver the car to you to test drive or whatever. So anyway, they charge $700. That's fine. It's added to my bill. I agreed to pay it. It's just a standard purchase thing on the part of Vroom, and we're a weekend, whatever. I wired the money on a Thursday. I wired it before the 3 p.m. cutoff, and so my bank actually confirmed that it was sent out, which means that, and it reached Texas. It would have reached Texas before the 5 p.m. closing time for banks to receive wires. But it's the end of the business day. I totally understand. I'll give it the weekend. I didn't hear anything over email or a phone call, even though most dealerships are generally open on weekends, but internet business, whatever. Monday, nothing. And I give them that leeway as well, because I have a busy personal life. I'm at work. Tuesday morning, and this is already in week 2 already, and this is probably day 9, at least business days, and day 11 if we're counting the weekend, but day 9. I called them and I'm like, hey, so I sent the wire. I haven't heard anything. I'm really hoping nothing's wrong. I wanted to get this car ASAP. Again, my mom's a teacher. She needs to go get her COVID vaccine. Where's this car? And they were like, oh, actually, I just looked up your file right now and it looks like we just received the wire. And I'm like, okay, that's weird. My bank said that it would have got there last week, or even yesterday, the Monday, that's a business day. And they were like, yada, yada, yada. But yeah, we have it. That's great. We're going to be processing your car ASAP. It's going to be with you soon. And I'm like, okay, only a couple days. It's still within the 10 to 14 day window. If you ship using expedited, freight, you can get a car from the east to the west coast or vice versa in under 2 days. And so I'm like, okay, sure, they're probably doing something here. This seems like a reputable company. They have a a bunch of interesting people from different tech companies on their board. And, you know, I'd been doing some looking because I was starting to get a little worried because I hadn't heard anything, but I was like, okay, you know, it's COVID, like, people are working from home, the company's like relatively young, so I'll give them some leeway. They've received the wire at this point. We're in week 2 and nothing. No email, no call about a status on my car. And, you know, I give it a couple days. So at this point, we're in the second week. They've already acknowledged receipt of the wire transfer, and I don't have a car yet. And so I'm definitely starting to get a little bit worried. I give them a call, and here's the part that really starts to get on my nerves. I probably had to repeat myself to maybe 15 to 20 different customer support agents with the same story every single day, if not multiple times a day, for the weeks that followed. And so yeah, the story gets worse. I called them, and you know, after waiting a little bit, another tier 1 customer support agent picks up. I explain my whole situation to them. They let me know that they're working super diligently to make sure that I get my car. They see that the wire transfer was received a couple days ago. They saw that I did my initial deposit and securing of the vehicle and getting the documents back to them the week prior. So every one of the customer support agents I spoke with, at least the tier 1s, acknowledged that, so they knew that the car was late. And all of them essentially at that point started directing me to the tier 2 customer support agents. Now, I'm guessing the way that this is organized as far as an organizational structure is concerned, for the way that calls are routed through internally at Vroom and how they're sort of communicating with customers, is the first line of defense are these tier 1 customer support agents, and they're likely people just contracted by Vroom and have kind of like a list of things that they can say, and at the point where there's any real action that needs to be taken, they need to connect you up to tier 2. Tier 2 is where it sort of gets interesting, because these are people who seem to have like some real control over what happens, but are nearly impossible to get to. Now, I think waited a cumulative over 8 hours at least on the phone with Vroom over the course of this period of waiting for the car. I would call, they said that, you know, can't do anything, not sure, I'm gonna connect you to a tier 2 agent who can really tell you what's going on with your car. And I'm like, okay. And I sit there and I wait and I wait and I wait and I wait and I wait. And I have screenshots from multiple of these things. If I have any available on me, they'll be in the video. You'll see them right now. If not, they're definitely on my Twitter, because I was consistently tweeting Vroom with these screenshots, letting them know how many hours I'm spending on hold, waiting to speak with someone to find out where my car is that I've already paid for, you have acknowledged receipt of funds for, and have acknowledged that are late on, and I have no car and no proof or anything. And so I'm extremely frustrated, I'm very upset, I'm anxious because I'm out over $25,000, and I don't know where the car is. And I wait an hour or so, and nobody picks up. And at this point, I'm getting excruciatingly frustrated. And so I sort of give up for the day, and the next day I pick up the phone as early as possible, and I get up and I call and I repeat the situation to another tier 1 customer support representative, who of course promptly directs me to a tier 2 customer support representative. I wait maybe an hour and a half, and I'm finally able to speak with someone. And I sort of explain my situation to them, and they apparently do some digging. I'm probably waiting 30 to 45 minutes on hold with the tier 2 customer support agent who's doing whatever they're doing. They get back to me and they sort of explain that they are finishing up sort of inspection of the vehicle. It's ready to go. They're just about to ship it out. And at this point, I'm a little frustrated. I'm kind of angry, but now I have some sort of status. I'm like, okay, the car's going through like its final inspections. Maybe they needed to update something. Maybe they needed to order a new tire. Maybe they needed to touch up some paint. Maybe there was a scuff. I don't know. I'm going to give them the leeway, because I understand that with large objects and things like cars, there's wear and tear, and if you're offering a guarantee the way that Vroom does, they probably need some time. So I understand. I thank the customer support agent for her time and for being helpful. And, you know, she says, you know, don't hesitate to call back, at which point I'm like, well, I'll try, but the wait times are super long. And she's like, yeah, we have a lot going on right now, but, you know, we'll do our best to help you. I'm like, great, cool. Someone cares enough to at least say that. I'm in the middle of week 2 at this point, haven't heard from anybody, no car. I go log into my Vroom account. I see that the car is just pending, and nothing. The rest of the week goes by. I call back the next day, speak to a tier 1 customer support representative, nothing. At which point I'm like, okay, I don't really need to be connected to tier 2 right now. They're probably just waiting. I call back the day after, so I think I'm at the end of week 2 at this point, and I asked to speak with someone in the logistics and delivery department. I believe the person's name was Raymond, and I'm actually very happy to dox these people because I, A, don't believe they're their real names, and B, I think there needs to be some accountability at this company. I don't know their last name, but the person went by Raymond multiple times. I spoke to this person multiple times who was like, definitely a little bit rude. I call and I ask and I say, hey, just wanted to see where my car was. And they were like, what does it say in the email? And I had received an email at some point in this whole process that said, you will receive your car at this time. And I gave them the date, and I'm like, March 30th, which he was like, well, you'll get it on March 30th. It's not March 30th yet. And I'm like, yes, sure. I want to believe that, but I have no idea where the car is. Can you tell me what state it's in right now? Can you tell me the status of the vehicle? Has it been inspected? Is it on the truck? What's going on? And they were like, you will have the car on March 30th. I'm like, okay, sure. You know what? I'm going to believe you foolishly. And I said, all right. So I gave it a week. I actually didn't call back Vroom for a whole week. Of course, I didn't hear anything at this time. I'm getting very frustrated. We're in week 3 now of March, and so we're heading up on that deadline for March 30th. Still haven't heard anything. At some point, I start to receive automated texts saying that my car is in transit, and I'm like, this is an awesome, I have an update. Wow, finally, something. And so I get a text message that my car is on the truck and it will be delivered on March 30th. Great. Next day, it's on the truck, it'll be delivered March 30th. Great. Next day, it's on the truck, it'll be delivered March 30th. Great, but we're very close to March 30th. I call back, speak with a customer support agent, have them transfer me to logistics. Raymond again says it'll be there March 30th, sounding very short with me. And I say, I appreciate it. I just want to know, is there anything else that you need from me for delivery? You haven't asked for a ton of information. I'm not going to be the one picking it up. It's going to be my mom. They were like, the driver will call you. You'll figure everything out. Sure. I call back the next day with no progress update on the text messages from them again. And I sort of call back because we're in the 3rd week, remember, of me having paid for this car in full, in cash, them acknowledging receipt of payments, and them acknowledging the fact that they were late. Speak with a customer support tier 1 agent for a couple minutes, explain myself again. They transfer me to a customer support agent, a tier 2 customer support agent. I waited 2.5 hours on hold and finally was able to speak with someone, at which point I was just so frustrated. My mom needed this car such a long time ago that I just said, look, if I don't have my car on March 30th, which is coming up, it's the next day or the day after, I don't want the car. I want my money back so I can go in. And they were like, they started freaking out, and they were like, we're gonna make sure that you get the car. She puts me on hold for another 30 to 35 minutes. So in total, I've been on hold at this experience in particular in about 3 hours. And again, I have screenshots for all of this. I'll include them if I can. And she comes back to me with, hey, wanted to let you know, I understand that the car is late. Apparently there were some issues with shipping, we didn't receive your funds on time. And I go back and I'm like, hold up. I called literally the day after my funds went out, even though I had a very strong feeling that they had been received the day before. Your person told me that they had been received on this and this day. I didn't have the person's name. I don't think I'd asked the customer support tier 1 person's name, but I said, look, I spoke to someone and they confirmed receipt of funds. And then she goes back and she's like, oh yeah, okay, well, we received your funds. First of all, why is your accountability so terrible? Are you just lying to your customers? What is going on? Did you or did you not get my funds? And why do I have to be the one to point out that you're making a mistake and to go back and verify it? Anyway, she verifies, she apologizes, she says, look, and at this point I'm like, look, I've been paying for Ubers for my mom to get places. I needed this car a long time ago. If I'm not gonna get my car, can I at least get a refund? Can you just please cancel this order now? I've had enough. It's March 30th, tomorrow. I don't think the car is getting there. She's like, it'll be there. I wait. March 30th, no car. April 1st, no car. April 2nd, no car. And I'd had enough with them at this point, so I just really didn't want to call. April 4th or 5th, I call back, furious. Talk to the tier 1 agent, wait for an hour to be connected to a tier 2 agent, and I speak with this tier 2 agent. who literally has nothing to tell me, and halfway through the call, either it disconnects or I have a strong feeling that she disconnected it. I call back a few hours later, and an hour into holding after the first tier 1 customer support agent wanted to transfer me over to tier 2, I get one of those automated things that's like, hey, if you want to hold your place in line, we can call you back. I'm like, okay, great, at least I don't have to sit on hold for all this time anymore, and this is after an hour of waiting. So I do that option, the day goes by, no call. 4 to 5 hours, supposedly in this waiting queue. In fact, I call back again in the middle of the day and speak with the customer support tier 1 agent and let them know that I'm currently on hold on the other line, because they're like, oh, no way it took that long. And I said I can send you screenshots. If you look at your Twitter, I've just posted them there. And they're like, well, you know, the queue must be really long. We're kind of, you know, tier 2. There's a lot of people talking to them right now. And I'm like, it's been 4 to 5 hours. Fine, whatever. I give up. Next day, we're in week 1 of April. I call back and go to a customer support tier 1 agent, explain myself again. They transfer me again. Halfway through the transfer, I get a call from a Vroom number. And so I put the first call on hold, I answer the second call, and it's a lady named...
You have dialed a number that is not available from your calling area.
She reaches out to me and sounds very apologetic, you know, says that she understands that the car is late, she's not sure why. She assures me that the car has reached the state in which my mom is. So it's like it's actually at our local distribution center there, getting prepped for final delivery. And I asked her to look at the date, and it was well over 30 days after the general timeline of me having paid for the car, and it's definitely over double their upper limit of their advertised delivery time for a vehicle. And I ask her to cancel, and I just say, look, I want to cancel this. And she's like, you know, at this point, I imagine that asking someone to cancel this order would be helpful, and this person tries really hard. I let her know that I've been paying for these Ubers for my mom, and they said, look, after the car is delivered, we're actually going to try and maybe give you a concession or something to try and refund some of those fees, and I have personally taken over your case. I understand you've called a number of times, and, you know, like, I have full accountability. I'm going to assure you that you're going to get your car, and it's going to be great. And I actually asked for an email address at this point, because if you go through Vroom's website, you'll notice that there's no email addresses. They kind of force you into calling, because email addresses would have some level of accountability, because you can see that something was sent at a certain time. With a call, it's very hard to trace who it went to, where it went, and they kind of have plausible deniability about whether what you're saying is true or not. I sort of force her into giving me an email address, and she eventually gives me an email address, escalations@vroom.com. This person was supposedly a tier 2 agent from the customer escalations team, and, you know, she sent it to me right towards the end of the call, and I had, you know, asked her if she would respond to my emails, and she said, absolutely, I'm going to call you in a few hours, and at the latest I'll call you tomorrow with updates on your situation, but if you have any questions, just respond to that particular thread and I'll get back to you. And that's great. The call ends. About an hour later, I haven't heard anything, so I just respond to the email out of common courtesy, because this lady was at least nice to me over the phone, and I just thanked her for, you know, I said, Mariah, thank you so much for speaking with me. I feel better knowing that someone like you is taking care of my case, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Instant bounce back. Email was rejected from server because you don't have permissions to access this. Great. I email help@vroom.com, and I send a screenshot, and I'm like, look, this is what happened. Can you give me this person's email address? You can see that she emailed me, and I'd like to respond to her email. And they were like, well, you can just email at escalations. And I said, I'm being rejected. And they're like, oh, well, too bad, basically. Obviously, this person didn't understand how the email server response system works, and I didn't have permission to access it because it was likely an internal email or just an outgoing email. And so I'm stuck again, and I legitimately feel helpless and upset and frustrated and angry, and I like hate myself and this company and everything for having gotten this far, the whole while sort of like my mom's on the other end waiting. It's caused a ton of distress in the family. It's causing personal levels of stress across the board. And so I don't know what to do. I just continue to call customer service every day as much as I can. So I've gone through maybe 2 more of these situations. Mariah never gets back to me in any capacity, as I probably should have expected. And so maybe 2 days later, I go through the whole situation of multiple hours of waiting on hold, listening to their shitty music in terrible, terrible quality. And I finally get to speak to another tier 2 customer support representative, who I forced to cancel this order. And I legitimately would not stop letting her know that I am canceling this order or I'm going to a lawyer. And then she lets me know that the car is technically marked as sold, and so this would be a whole buyback situation, which would take another month for them to process. And then they, I don't know how or when, they're like, well, typically refunds are in 3 to 5 business days, but because this is a buyback, it's going to take a month. And I'm like, look, I need some sort of proof. I need written proof that you're going to get me back my money and that my order is being canceled. And she says, well, I can't do that, but you can call this department and they'll give you written proof. Which, of course, I didn't believe, but she had gotten so frustrated with me at that point that I just decided to end the call and call that number. Well, of course, nobody picked up. I actually ended up having the same experience with that number as with the one where I waited a couple hours, then got the "we'll hold your place in line," and then they never called back. Eventually, I'm able to, maybe the next day, so I'm in like the second week of April, and starting the second week of April, I'm able to get in touch with Acertus, which is the logistics and delivery company that Vroom actually outsourced the delivery of my car to, and they actually let me know that they have received the car. It's actually sitting with them in inventory, and it has been there for about 2.5 weeks. And this is the first I've heard of anything like this. Nobody at Vroom was able to give me that information. No tier 1 or tier 2 customer support agents were able to give me that information. And I asked him to, when the car is going to be delivered, and they're like, oh, well, we're actually waiting for insurance information from you. I paid in full for an insurance policy for my mom through Progressive, and I sent a copy there's a place to upload it when you're doing your paperwork for your car online. And I have proof that it was uploaded when it was uploaded, and I let them know, and they say, well, we don't have it and we have to get it through Vroom, when I asked them if I could just send it to them directly. So I call Vroom, I go through this whole situation again, tier 1 customer support representative, who, I don't know why you have a tier 1, literally all they can do is route you to tier 2. So they're a line of defense that's supposed to frustrate you enough to the point where you don't talk to them. And that's it. Route to tier 2, I've never had a wait with Vroom that was under an hour. So over an hour on hold, speak with someone at tier 2, let them know, and they said, they'll get it over to Acertus, which actually surprisingly they did, because I got a call back from Acertus maybe an hour later saying that, oh yeah, they've received it, it's all set. No information about the date, but now I have a number and I have a contact at Acertus. So I call them back the next day and they say, yes, of course, we got your proof of insurance. We're actually just waiting on your plates to come, or your inspection to come in. And for context, the car was in Massachusetts, and that's where the car is going. And they said that the Massachusetts state inspection system has been down for about 2 weeks. Which kind of coincidentally enough with when the car was actually given, or was in Acertus's final delivery prep possession. And nobody told me about this. I don't live in the state of Massachusetts. It's not really common knowledge to people outside of there, other than people who are trying to get their inspections renewed for the state of Massachusetts to make sure that they're legally allowed to drive their vehicles. And I finally figure out what the real delay situation, at least towards the end of this process, into April has been, and that's just because they haven't been able to get an inspection sticker from the state. Eventually, the state lets them know that they're allowed to deliver the vehicle because their inspection systems are still down, and they've given everybody a grace period where they can either not have an inspection sticker or have one that's expired until the end of May. And so Acertus lets me know that they can deliver the car, and the car is delivered the next morning. So Acertus, their part in this was great. Their customer support was great. I got a lot of calls from them. I had a number which, when I called back and I gave them sort of my reference ticket number, they were very easily able to pull back up my information. Now, Acertus is not Vroom. My experience with Vroom, and I'm just going to try and wrap this video up here, is maybe one of the worst experiences that I've had with purchasing anything ever. I've had to buy a home. Doing the mortgage process is very difficult for a lot of people. There's credit checking involved, there's tons of paperwork, there's going to notary publics. Buying my home took less time than buying this car. I've bought 3 cars in the last 1.5 years. The process of buying each one of those cars combined took less than 24 hours. Buying this car through Vroom took me 6.5 weeks with literally no information. Now, I can understand, there's a global pandemic. things are difficult. The company is based in Texas. I'm over here. The car might have been somewhere else. They never told me where it came from. My mom is in Massachusetts, which is where the car is being delivered. There's some leeway that I'm happy to give people with that. But the complete and utter lack of any sort of accountability, communication especially, and really any sort of trust that this brand could have built with someone was entirely lost. And that is what maybe disgusted me the most with this situation. In doing further research on Vroom as I was going through this, I found out that they recently lost their Better Business Bureau accreditation. There's been other people who've gone through this situation. The most relevant one to people who are viewing this channel, watching this video on YouTube, is another YouTuber named The Fastlane Car, who I watch. And they're a much larger channel than this. They have over 1 million subscribers. And so when they went through this situation, Vroom was very happy to get back in touch with them and sort of remedy it for them. And even their situation wasn't great. You can watch their video. I'll actually link it in the description if you guys would like to take a look. Mine ended up at least being okay in the point that the car was eventually delivered. The car was in good shape. It was as described. My mom has possession of it. It's fully insured. It's legal to be driven, and there's no real mechanical issues with it. The car that I bought was new enough that it still has the original manufacturer's warranty, and so we're not really concerned about any other real major issues because they're going to be covered under manufacturer's warranty. But really this video is to sort of let you know to stay far away. This is not a company you want to do business with. I've had better business experiences and purchase experiences and customer support experiences from hot dog carts in New York City. Like when I dropped a hot dog, they'd give me another one, or something didn't taste right, they'd be happy to help. They didn't have change. They were like, you know, don't worry about it, we can figure it out. This was literally the single worst experience I could have ever had with any company. And I've been through a lot of different experiences. I've lived in a bunch of different countries and had to work with different and difficult people. But this by far was absolutely the worst. And I could not recommend you stay further away from this company. I will literally, if you are in the area and you are considering buying a car from Vroom, I will personally drive you to another dealership if you need a ride to make sure that you don't buy a car from Vroom. And I literally promise this. If you are in the Seattle area, hit me up on a DM on Twitter or Instagram, and I will drive you to a dealership or a good recommendation for where to go so that you can get the car that you're looking for at an affordable price or a reasonable price or whatever, so that you don't buy a car from Vroom. That's how dedicated I am against this company. So that's been my experience. I hope this video can help some of you if anyone's in the process of doing business with Vroom or was thinking about doing it. Stay far away, save your money, save yourself the headache most of all, and remember to subscribe. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Peace.